Hollywood loves a rising star, but few have risen as fast and as powerfully as Jenna Ortega. From her days as a little Disney Channel actress to becoming Netflix's global sensation as Wednesday Addams, her journey is nothing short of extraordinary. But how did she get here? What struggles did she face? And how did a girl from a humble background capture the hearts of millions around the world? This is the untold story of Jenna Ortega. Jenna Marie Ortega was born on September 27, 2002, in Coachella Valley, California. She grew up in a big family, one of 6 children. Her father is Mexican-American, and her mother is of both Mexican and Puerto Rican descent. Jenna often describes her upbringing as warm, supportive, and full of love, but also modest. Her parents weren't Hollywood insiders. They were everyday people who worked hard to provide for their children. From an early age, Jenna had a passion for performing. She would act out scenes at home, entertain her family, and even ask her mom to record her on a camcorder. By the time she was 6, Jenna already knew she wanted to be an actress, but breaking into Hollywood wasn't easy. Her family lived hours away from Los Angeles, and traveling to auditions meant sacrifices. Still, Jenna's parents supported her dreams, and soon, those dreams began to come true. At just 8 years old, Jenna Ortega started appearing in commercials. Her first acting jobs were small, background roles in TV shows like Rob and CSI and Y. Then came her big break in 2013, when she was cast as the younger version of Gina Rodriguez's character in Jane the Virgin. The role was small, but Jenna's charm made her unforgettable. Viewers began to notice her, and Hollywood started paying attention. In 2016, Jenna Ortega's career took off when she landed the lead role of Harley Diaz in Disney Channel's Stuck in the Middle. The show focused on Harley, a brilliant inventor and the middle child in a family of 7 siblings. Jenna's performance was a hit. Fans loved her humor, her relatability, and her natural acting. For many kids around the world, Jenna Ortega became a Disney star to look up to. At the same time, she also voiced Princess Isabel in Disney's animated series Elena of Avalor, showcasing her talent even further. But while Disney gave Jenna fame, she knew she didn't want to stay in the child star box forever. She had bigger dreams. When Stuck in the Middle ended, Jenna Ortega faced a challenge many Disney stars struggle with, breaking free from the child actor label. But Jenna wasn't afraid. Instead, she took on darker, more mature roles. In 2019, she shocked fans with her performance in Netflix hit Thriller You, where she played Ellie Alves, a sharp and fearless teenager who crossed paths with Joe Goldberg. The role proved she could handle serious, suspenseful material. Soon, Jenna was being cast in horror films like The Babysitter, Killer Queen, and X. Hollywood began calling her the new Scream Queen, following in the footsteps of actresses like Jamie Lee Curtis. Then came the role that changed everything. In 2022, Tim Burton and Netflix announced Jenna Ortega as the lead in Wednesday. The world was skeptical. Could she really bring this gothic icon to life? The answer was a powerful yes. Jenna's portrayal of Wednesday Addams was bold, fresh, and unforgettable. Her deadpan delivery, her iconic wardrobe, and her now legendary dance scene went viral worldwide. Wednesday became one of Netflix's biggest shows of all time, and Jenna Ortega became a household name. She wasn't just a former Disney star anymore. She was a global superstar. Since Wednesday, Jenna Ortega's career has reached new heights. She starred in the Scream movies, hosted Saturday Night Live, and became a red carpet favorite for high fashion brands like Dior, Valentino, and Gucci. She also earned award nominations and critical acclaim for her work. But fame hasn't changed her. Jenna remains humble and outspoken. She uses her platform to advocate for representation in Hollywood, mental health awareness, and equal opportunities for Latinas in film. Jenna Ortega is famously private about her personal life. She avoids sharing too much about relationships or family matters, focusing instead on her work. But she has been open about her struggles with anxiety and the pressures of being in the spotlight. Despite this, she continues to inspire young fans around the world with her honesty, maturity, and strength. From a little girl in Coachella Valley with big dreams to becoming the face of one of Netflix's most successful shows, Jenna Ortega's story is proof that with talent, persistence, and courage, anything is possible. Her journey from Disney star to Wednesday Addams isn't just inspiring, it's legendary. What's your favorite Jenna Ortega role? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories of your favorite stars. When 2019 arrived, Jenna Ortega stood at a crossroads. She had built a reputation as a reliable young actress through her Disney projects. But she knew she was capable of so much more. The next chapter of her life would demand courage, maturity, and a willingness to step into much darker, more challenging spaces. And that moment arrived when she joined the second season of Netflix's hit psychological thriller You. At just 16 years old, Jenna landed the role of Ellie Alves, the quick-witted, tech-savvy teenage neighbor of Joe Goldberg, played by Penn Badgley. For many actors, a role like Ellie might have been just another supporting character, but Jenna transformed her into something unforgettable. From her very first scene, Ellie radiated confidence. She wasn't the typical helpless teenager audiences had grown used to seeing in thrillers. Instead, she was sharp, outspoken, and cautious, with a street-smart edge that made her feel authentic. Jenna played her with a balance of vulnerability and toughness that instantly resonated with viewers. And let's be honest, standing toe-to-toe with Penn Badgley in You is no easy task. His portrayal of Joe Goldberg was already an internet obsession, and his dark charisma carried the show. But Jenna refused to let Ellie get overshadowed. Every time she shared the screen with Joe, there was this undeniable spark, a tug-of-war between innocence and danger, curiosity and fear. One of the most compelling aspects of Ellie was her layered personality. On the surface, she was a confident teenager trying to navigate Los Angeles life. But beneath that bravado was a girl carrying the weight of abandonment, loss, and survival. Her older sister Delilah, played by Carmela Zumbato, tried to protect her, but Ellie often had to rely on her own instincts. Jenna's performance captured this tension beautifully. She could shift from witty sarcasm to heartbreaking vulnerability in a matter of seconds. Critics and audiences alike noticed. Entertainment writers praised her for bringing authenticity to a genre that often reduces teens to stereotypes. Fans on social media exploded with admiration, many saying she was the best part of season 2. And perhaps most importantly, Jenna herself felt the shift. She wasn't just a Disney star anymore. She was an actress who could handle complex, emotionally heavy material. But what really set her performance apart was the chemistry between Ellie and Joe. Their dynamic was unlike anything else in the series. Joe, the predator, often manipulates young women and thrives on power imbalances. But with Ellie, the tables turn in subtle ways. She wasn't afraid to call him out, to challenge him, to demand honesty in a world built on lies. In many ways, Ellie became a mirror for Joe, forcing him to confront a humanity he rarely acknowledged. Jenna understood that nuance, and she played it with precision. Still, like many characters in You, Ellie's story didn't end neatly. The season left her in a state of uncertainty, her fate unresolved, her trauma lingering. And while fans begged for her return in later seasons, Jenna's career was already moving forward. That cliffhanger, in some ways, reflected her own life, one chapter closing and another beginning. Because You wasn't just a job, it was a statement. Jenna had proven she could hold her own in a mature, gritty, and psychologically intense series. She had shattered the bubble of her Disney past and announced to Hollywood, "I'm ready for something bigger." And that something bigger was already on its way. By the early 2020s, horror was experiencing a resurgence. Classic franchises were returning. New filmmakers were pushing boundaries, and audiences were hungry for fresh faces to lead the genre. And Jenna Ortega was about to step into that world not as a side character, not as comic relief, but as the heart of a new horror generation. But before she took her place as the face of modern horror, her performance in You laid the groundwork. It taught audiences and casting directors that she could embody vulnerability while still projecting strength, that she could explore trauma without making it melodramatic, and most importantly, that she could hold the screen in stories where darkness was not just a backdrop, but the very air the characters breathed. In interviews later, Jenna would reveal just how much playing Ellie changed her outlook on acting. She described the role as a turning point, one that gave her confidence to pursue projects she might have once doubted she could handle. She admitted that, while Disney gave her structure and discipline, You gave her freedom. Freedom to experiment, to dig deeper, and to trust her instincts. The public, too, began to shift in their perception of her. She wasn't just the Disney girl anymore. She was Ellie Alves, the teenager who stood her ground against the serial killer, the character who walked the dangerous streets of Los Angeles while carrying the heavy baggage of survival. And she had done it with such conviction that it was impossible to ignore. For many rising stars, the leap from child actor to serious performer is riddled with missteps. Some get typecast, some burn out, and others fade away. But Jenna Ortega made the transition look effortless. You was not just a role, it was her announcement to the world. And that announcement echoed far beyond Netflix servers. Because the industry was listening. Casting directors, producers, and filmmakers were paying attention. And when the iconic Scream franchise went searching for a new face to carry its legacy into the 2020s, there was only one name that kept coming up, Jenna Ortega. And with that, her transformation from rising star to full-blown horror icon was about to begin. If you proved Jenna Ortega could hold her own in a psychologically intense drama, her next step would establish her as something even greater, a new face of modern horror. By 2022, Hollywood was buzzing with the return of iconic slasher franchises. And at the center of that revival was one of the most legendary of them all, Scream. The original Scream films, directed by Wes Craven in the late 1990s, were more than just slasher flicks, they were cultural milestones. They deconstructed horror tropes, played with audience expectations, and gave us unforgettable characters like Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. To be part of that legacy was no small task. For Jenna Ortega, it meant stepping into a world with decades of passionate fans, sky-high expectations, and a genre desperately searching for a new generation of survivors. And she delivered. Jenna joined the cast of Scream, 2022 often, called Scream 5, playing Tara Carpenter, the film's opening victim. In horror cinema, the opening scene is sacred. It's where the tone is set, the stakes are revealed, and the audience gets its first jolt of adrenaline. In the original Scream 1996, Drew Barrymore's shocking death in the first scene became iconic. In Scream 5, Jenna Ortega had the nearly impossible job of living up to that legacy. But here's the twist. Unlike Barrymore's character, Tara survives. That decision alone sent shockwaves through the fan base. Audiences expected her to die, but instead, she lived bloodied, traumatized, but alive. It was a bold subversion of horror tradition, and Jenna carried it brilliantly. Her performance in that brutal opening sequence was raw and visceral. The fear in her eyes, the pain in her voice, the desperate will to fight back it all felt terrifyingly real. She transformed what could have been a simple nod to horror history into a defining moment for the franchise's future. Critics immediately highlighted her as a standout. Headlines praised her ability to redefine the opening scene and inject fresh life into Ghostface's reign of terror. Fans, too, were captivated. Social media lit up with admiration for how Jenna not only survived, but became the emotional anchor of the film. And Tara Carpenter wasn't just a victim, she was a survivor. Throughout the movie, Jenna brought layers of resilience to Tara, balancing fragility with determination. She was hurt, yes, but never broken. That strength connected with audiences, especially younger viewers who saw in her a new kind of final girl. With Scream, Jenna Ortega was officially crowned a modern Scream queen. But it wasn't just one role that earned her the title. Around the same time, she was also making bold choices in other horror projects. In Ty West's X 2022, a slasher set in the 1970s, Jenna played Lorraine, a reserved church-going girl who finds herself caught in a nightmarish scenario when a film crew is targeted by an elderly couple. The movie was gritty, bloody, and unapologetically shocking, and once again, Jenna proved her versatility. She started as the quiet, somewhat judgmental outsider, but as the film unfolded, her character broke free from that shell, making decisions that shocked even the other characters. Critics praised her ability to surprise the audience, to twist expectations, and to make even the smallest roles memorable. She also appeared in The Babysitter, Killer Queen 2020, another horror comedy, where her sharp wit and fearless presence stood out. By this point, it was clear. Jenna Ortega wasn't just dipping her toes into the horror genre, she was redefining it. But what makes Jenna's horror career so fascinating is how intentional it feels. She has spoken openly about her love for the genre, admitting that she's drawn to its intensity, its emotional range, and its demand for authenticity. Horror isn't just about screaming on cue, it's about convincing an audience that terror is real. And that's exactly what Jenna does best. She's also become something of a generational bridge. Fans of classic horror respect her for stepping into legacy franchises like Scream, while younger audiences connect with her authenticity, her relatable personality, and her unapologetic embrace of darker roles. She is not afraid to look messy, to be vulnerable, to show pain in a way that feels honest. By the end of 2022, Jenna Ortega wasn't just an actress working steadily in Hollywood. She was being hailed as the new face of horror. Journalists compared her to icons like Jamie Lee Curtis and Neve Campbell. Directors praised her ability to bring gravity to even the most chaotic scenes. And fans began calling her the scream queen of a new era. But here's the thing about horror. While it can define a career, it can also box actors in. Many performers struggle to escape the genre once they're labeled as a final girl. Jenna Ortega, however, wasn't worried because she knew what was coming next. Her time in You proved she could handle psychological drama. Her role in Scream established her as a modern horror star. But it was her next project one that combined gothic horror, dark comedy, and supernatural fantasy that would catapult her into global superstardom. A project where she would play an iconic character beloved for generations. A project that would dominate Netflix, break records, and launch millions of viral trends. A project that would forever change how the world saw Jenna Ortega. That project was Wednesday. By the time 2022 rolled around, Jenna Ortega had already proven herself as a versatile and fearless actress. From Disney comedies to the psychological thriller You, from slasher revivals like Scream to indie horrors like X, she had shown Hollywood that she could do it all. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could prepare the world for what came next. Netflix had partnered with legendary director Tim Burton to reimagine one of the most iconic characters in pop culture, Wednesday Addams. Dark, sarcastic, morbidly funny, and endlessly fascinating, Wednesday had been a household name for decades. From cartoons to TV shows to the famous 1990s films, she was a character audiences thought they knew inside and out. But Burton's vision was different. He wanted to create a coming-of-age series where Wednesday wasn't just a side character, she was the star. And to bring this vision to life, he chose Jenna Ortega. At first, some fans were skeptical. Could this young actress, known for horror films and supporting roles, really carry a character as beloved and layered as Wednesday Addams? Could she balance the creepy with the comedic, the gothic with the relatable? The answer, as we all now know, was a resounding yes. From the very first episode of Wednesday 2022, Jenna Ortega completely reinvented the character. She gave Wednesday a sharper edge, a colder stare, and a confidence that felt both timeless and brand new. Her monotone delivery, her perfectly timed sarcasm, and her refusal to overplay the role made her Wednesday feel real, almost unsettlingly so. But what set Jenna's Wednesday apart wasn't just the deadpan humor. It was the depth. Beneath the dark jokes and gothic charm, she brought genuine emotion. Viewers saw hints of vulnerability, longing, and even tenderness in a character who had always been portrayed as detached. That balance between icy wit and hidden warmth was what made Jenna's performance unforgettable. And then came that scene, Episode 4, the school dance, the now iconic Wednesday dance. What many fans don't know is that Jenna choreographed it herself, drawing inspiration from old punk movements, goth club dancing, and even 1980s music videos. She created a dance that was quirky, unsettling, and completely original. Within hours of the show's release, the scene went viral. Millions of TikTok users began recreating it, adding their own spin, and spreading it across every corner of the internet. Suddenly, Jenna Ortega wasn't just an actress on a Netflix series. She was a global phenomenon. The numbers spoke for themselves. Wednesday became one of Netflix's biggest hits of all time, breaking records for hours watched in a single week. It trailed only behind Stranger Things in terms of viewership. Everywhere you turned, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, there was Jenna Ortega as Wednesday Addams. Her sharp glare, her gothic outfits, her dance, it was everywhere. Critics were just as enthusiastic. Major publications praised her for reinventing an icon. Some even went as far as to call her version of Wednesday the definitive one, eclipsing all others. Awards soon followed, with nominations at the Golden Globes, Screen Actors Guild Awards, and Emmy Awards. For someone so young, this level of recognition was staggering. But for Jenna, the role meant more than fame and awards. In interviews, she opened up about how deeply she connected to Wednesday's outsider perspective. She described how, growing up in Hollywood as a Latina actress, she often felt overlooked or underestimated. Playing Wednesday allowed her to channel those feelings into strength, to embody a character who embraced her differences instead of hiding them. Fans connected to that authenticity. Young viewers especially saw in Wednesday a reflection of themselves, people who didn't quite fit in, who didn't follow the crowd, who wanted to carve their own path. Jenna had given Wednesday Addams a new cultural relevance, turning her into a symbol of individuality and rebellion. Behind the scenes, Jenna also showed remarkable dedication. She pushed for changes in the script, insisting that Wednesday wouldn't say certain lines that felt out of character. She worked long hours, balancing filming with choreography, fencing lessons, and telepractice, all of which were required for the role. She was determined to make Wednesday as authentic as possible, and it paid off. By the end of 2022, Jenna Ortega had gone from rising star to global superstar. The little girl who once auditioned for Disney sitcoms was now the face of one of the biggest shows in the world. And perhaps most importantly, she had done it on her own terms, choosing roles that challenged her, embracing projects that reflected her passions, and never settling for less than authenticity. The impact of Wednesday cannot be overstated. Beyond the awards, beyond the internet trends, it cemented Jenna Ortega's place in Hollywood's future. She had proven she could carry a series, lead a franchise, and redefine an iconic character for a new generation. As fans eagerly await season 2, one thing is clear. Jenna Ortega is no longer just a talented young actress. She's a cultural force, a voice for outsiders, a symbol of strength, individuality, and creative freedom. Looking back, it's almost poetic. Her journey began with Disney, where she learned discipline and craft. It shifted with You, where she showed emotional depth. It solidified with Scream and X, where she embraced horror and fearlessness. And it exploded with Wednesday, where all those threads came together in one breathtaking performance. For Jenna Ortega, the story is only beginning. Her breakthrough roles have already changed her life and inspired millions. But the future? The future holds possibilities far greater than anything we've seen yet. Because Jenna Ortega is not just playing roles anymore, she is redefining them.